And welcome to post-match reaction to Wales versus Ireland. It finished 25-7 to Wales. And first off, before we go any further, congratulations to Wales on a well-deserved Grand Slam and Six Nations Championship win. That's 14 wins on the trot, and that really is a very impressive stat. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for every predictions and opinion, and hopefully joining me, Morris from Bulls.ie. So let's go through the game, and starting off straight from the kickoff, Wales had the perfect start, and they kicked very close to touch, kept it in play though, and tackled Ireland, as I say, into touch. That got them a line out in Welsh territory. Anscombe chip over the top, and Hadley Parkes goes in to score the only try of the game. 1 minute down, or 1 minute 40 seconds, or something like that, when he scored, and it's 7-0. A brilliant start for Wales. Well executed play there, spotting that Rob Kearney was out wide rather than sweeping in behind, and taking advantage of where the space was. And that's been part of the discussion we've had this Six Nations, is that there is space on the pitch somewhere. The question is, how do you find it? Do you find it by passing and putting players into space, or do you find that space by putting on the boot and kicking into space? There's only 15 players. You can't cover every inch of grass. So perfect game plan, perfect execution for them there. Ireland came back into it though, won the kickoff, put some good pressure, but then after a few phases lost the ball at the breakdown. Wales had George North went off with what looked like a wrist injury early on, and I found it a bit surprising that Dan Biggar came on, and they pushed Anscombe to fullback, putting Liam Williams out wide. On a wet day like this, you might be thinking that you'd want to keep someone like Liam Williams at 15 with that great under the high ball, under the wet ball, but hey, they went down that route instead. And to be fair, Anscombe had a very good game at fullback under that high ball. Biggar had a very good game at 10 as well, and it all worked wonderfully. Obviously, bringing Biggar on gives you that second kicking option, and in a wet game, that's the kind of thing that you want to have. Looking at the stats, I was looking at the stats earlier and saw that Wales had hardly run with the ball at all. They added a bit towards the end, but this was only 110 metres running with ball in hand by Wales compared to 237 by Ireland. You have players who quite often in a game will run on their own more than 110 metres with ball in hand. This was very good wet weather rugby. They played to the conditions, to their opponents, to the game situation extremely well. One of the things I mentioned in midweek was that both these sides like to play from in front. They're not teams that really necessarily like to chase games, and that whoever got in front after that first quarter of the game, after whoever was in front after that 20 minutes, I thought would go on and win it. And that's exactly what happened. Wales added a penalty after 16 minutes, and that put them up 10-0. Ireland, uncharacteristically, were having discipline issues during this game. Didn't adapt well to Angus Gardner at all, and gave up way more penalties than they would do normally. That allowed Anscombe in the end to kick 6 penalties in this game. He also kicked the conversion as well, so he had a perfect day with the boot. As I say, it was 10-0 after that 20 minutes, and part of that came down to Ireland's choices. Ireland had opportunities. They got into the 22 today. They did, even though they only scored after the final whistle. Sorry, did I say they won try this game? There were 2 tries in this game. There we go. Sorry if I mentioned that at the very beginning. Then they had their opportunities, but they decided to go for the corner. They were going for that try bonus point very early, or chasing the game very early, which to me was a questionable tactic. Scoreboard pressure really is one. There are 2 types of pressure. 3 types of pressure in this game. Obviously, players actually on you, but we talk about the pressure of the clock, and we talk about the pressure of the scoreboard in this one. I personally thought Ireland getting themselves 3 points, getting themselves on the board on a wet day that was quite with a good chance it was going to be decided by kicks, which is what this game was. Wales only scored only scored one try, but they still racked up 25 points from the that was from the boot. And I think Ireland made a poor choice early on. I know people talk about it being brave or ambitious and all that kind of stuff. Personally, I thought it was the wrong choice at the time. They had several chances before Wales started to pull away. Good evening, good afternoon, Morris. How are you doing? Hello, sir. Are you there? Okay, I'm going to continue, and if Morris joins in, that's fantastic. If he's still setting up, then obviously we'll go from there. Hi, Morris. Can you hear me? Crackling, so I'm going to I'm going to have to carry. So Ireland were turning down threes and thinking about bonus points to me far too early, and then errors after that Wales forced errors after that to pull away. We had an offside penalty on 34 minutes, and an error, and it wasn't just errors that were leading to penalties; it was also errors kicking from hand. The box kicks and stuff weren't as contestable as you'd normally expect them to be. There were too many kicks out on the full. I mean, one kick out in full is too many, isn't it? So kicks out in the full weren't that great either, which was a problem. We then had something that will get talked about, and I know with plenty of tweets during the game about Welsh fans complaining. Sorry, not Welsh fans, Irish fans saying that Angus Gardner was having a bad day. I don't think he was. I think Angus Gardner had a fine day. Yes, he blew the whistle perhaps more than Welsh people would expect, but or more than we'd expect in some of the Northern Hemisphere referees to do. But for me, the Angus Gardner had a fine day. We had a couple of incidents with the big screen where he changed his decision, and he changed his decision correctly. Now, that does raise the question of the power of the big screen and who decides what you show up there when you show it. But in both these cases, he was blindsided in the first situation, so he couldn't see the Irish hand in there with the first knock on. But when you saw it on the big screen, it was clear, and he changed it round. And the second one, he's a long way away from play when Earls gathers a ball and puts it down. When it's being kicked through like that, the referees are going to be a long way from play. They can only run so fast. Again, using those two opportunities to return it and being honest and accepting his errors, I thought was absolutely fine by the referee. I know that I've heard referees talk about in the past, Nigel Owens and others say that basically once you made a decision, you should stick with it and don't admit that you've made a mistake. Well, in this case, I think he handled it well, and I think we went the right way about it. Another penalty at half time, after 41 minutes at half time, Wales were putting pressure in the 22, made it was 16-0. And as I said during the week that whoever was leading after 20 minutes would win this one. That's, as we all know, is how that turned out. But the Wales were very happy just to keep that scoreboard turning over, let that pressure apply to Ireland, make Ireland chase the ball, and basically try and play as error-free rugby as possible. Wales started the second half exactly the same as well. claiming that restart, applying pressure to Ireland, getting the better of the kicking exchange, and keeping that pressure on. They didn't get points initially, but those points came on 48 minutes, on 52 minutes, on 68 minutes, with penalties in kickable positions, and every single time Alwyn Jones pointed at the posts, and every time Anscombe put the ball over. So 12 minutes left, 25-0. Everyone knew the game was well gone by that stage. Really, it was that kick on 52 minutes took it to 22-0. Once it's 4 scores, there was no way Ireland were coming back. I mean, most of us realised that Ireland weren't coming back before then, but that really was what put the nail in the coffin. The luck of the Welsh, I mean, we'll talk about the luck of the Irish, but the restart from Sexton went gone blank. Jonathan Davis lets it bounce, and it bounces through the in-goal area. We go back for a scrum. Now, if that bounces the other side of the flag, and it's a line out on the Welsh 5-metre line, it's a totally different game. But I say things went Wales's way, but it went their way because they'd applied the pressure, and they were forcing the mistakes. Irish kicking game today really did not function. The box kicks weren't contestable, and the majority of the time Wales could defuse them. They kicked out in the full. I can think about 3 kicks probably went out in the full from memory, and we had that one that went through into the dead goal area as well. It was not a great day for them. The one player I will have I would say a little bit negativity about probably is Gareth Davis on the Welsh side before I start eulogising about how great all their players were. He dived on a player early on that didn't get punished. He did it again. That meant a penalty got reversed. And he gave up at least another penalty in the second half as well. So I wasn't surprised to see him getting hooked. Didn't have the best of days. Lama did take his try very well. Ireland had their opportunities in the Welsh 22, but it wasn't until time was up that they actually managed to get over that line. As Charlie says in the live chat, Welsh defence was monstrous, and yes, it absolutely was. Looking at the stats, they made 140 of 150 attempted tackles. That's a 93% tackle rate. Ireland, on the other hand, 73 of 81 tackles, a 90% tackle rate. That was very good. And as we can tell, 31 kicked from hand by Wales, 28 by Ireland. This was wet weather rugby. The other point about this, I think I've talked about the meters running already, but Wales won all the all the key stats. They had the possession and territory in that first half, but other key stat, which got their lead. And in the second half, Ireland had more possession territory, just couldn't break down that defence, which we just talked about. But 8 turnovers by Wales during this game, 20 by Ireland. They were definitely won the breakdown battle as well. Hi Morris, how are you doing?
Paul, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I've just gone through the game and mentioned the key things was getting onto the players, but any sort of key moments during that game you'd like to have a quick chat about before we eulogise about various different players?
I guess, I mean, a lot of this focus we're talking about how great Wales were, which is absolute. I think in so many ways Ireland were the architecture of their own downfall. Like there was a level of inaccuracy that we would never ever associate with a Joe Schmidt team. And that's not just in terms of like inability with strike plays. I mean, you're talking about an ability to communicate who's going to cover a backfield from the very first try. Like there was different stratospheres in terms of thinking. It was kind of a level of performance that is so bad that you can nearly just park it because you know these players are patently better than this. And I guess it's just about trying to determine where it actually came from.
And yeah, as people can say, why are we starting on Ireland? Well, as you can probably tell by Morris's accent, he is Irish, and one of the writers at balls.ie. So do check them out over there. I mean, one of the things I mentioned is the Ireland's contestable kicking game that we've from Murray that we've had for years wasn't there today. It was either too long. We saw him and Sexton both put kicks out on the full, as well as the restart that went dead. You're right. There were a lot of mistakes from Ireland. What people sort of, I guess, call unforced errors, but the pressure of the game does pay into that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, intensity leads to disorientation, and that's kind of the main thing you would associate with this Ireland team. And even on the kicking game there, I mean, you mentioned that. It was quite obvious that was a tactic. Like, you could see Earls and Stockdale were, locked and ready to go. They knew the ball wasn't going to come wide, and they were ready to run these like massive high pressing chase games that the two of them are kind of renowned for. And they were never given any platform to compete ever in the game. The only time that they were put under pressure, like if you look at it on the other perspective, there was a moment when in the first half, Dan Bigger got up above just Stockdale to take that amazing catch. But that was because the kick was perfect. I mean, the platform that he was given to do that, the hang time of that was perfect. I think it was maybe 5 seconds when they timed it back. I'd have to watch it back to see properly. But on the other side of that, I mean, both of Ireland wingers never got that opportunity. So, and that, I mean, when your playmakers are so inaccurate, everything outside that is inhibited because of that. I mean, it hinders everything because so much of the ball goes through them. And that was one of the biggest issues Ireland had today.
Yeah, they did. And as I say, the pressure that comes on because Wales made such a great start to this game and were so accurate so early on. And they played the right kind of game for this weather. I mentioned it already in the show, but Ireland had over twice as many running meters with the ball as Wales did. But Wales, once they knew they were in front, could play in the right areas of the pitch, wait for the penalties to come, and then keep the scoreboard ticking over 3 at a time. Early on, though, after Wales were 10-0 up, Ireland had the opportunity to take 3. Do you think they made the wrong choice going for the corner, or do you think they should have got on the scoreboard?
No, I mean, I think in theory it was probably a good idea. I mean, the play that they had was pretty well set. I think their lineout has been, like last week, was phenomenal. I think they were above 90% accuracy. It was just the fact that you're talking about it. Somebody else, James Ryan, is now calling the lineout, and Roy Best's delivery was really, really poor. I mean, just basic fly patterns and stuff like that, and the play broke down. But I thought in theory it was a really good idea. It was trying to respond to this Welsh or the English idea of these, over the first thing over the blocks, these like quick responses, getting a big head start, this kind of thing that seems to be strategic now. Teams are really starting to drill down to start like right away, and Ireland just didn't do that. But that's down to execution. That's not down to thinking. I think a lot of there's already I've seen reaction in terms of Joe Schmidt's idea to keep the roof open. The conditions were the same for both teams. There was just total clarity in the Welsh side that was totally lacking from Ireland. I mean, I don't mean to just be like this post-mortem about Ireland and not give any credit to Wales. Wales were phenomenal and fully deserving succession. But it's just from our own perspective, I think there's a sense of kind of confusion as to where this came from.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's exactly this. You can talk about roofs open, closed, whatever. That's just a distraction from what really happened today, which was
exactly.
one team nailed the game plan perfectly, the other team didn't. And whether and that game plan by Wales was, as I say, was correct for not just the weather, not just for their opponents, but for the position they were in the game. They got themselves in a position that they could play that style from. It wouldn't have worked if they were if they were 10 points behind. They would have had to chase the game more. They would have had to play with more ball in hand. One of the things we saw, because it was wet, and we talked that Ireland played more rugby, but that meant they gave up 11 scrums, whereas Wales only gave up 3 scrums. So you can see that this wasn't a day to be playing rugby. If you could avoid it, you're much better off playing in the right areas of the pitch, and then waiting for those mistakes to come, because A, the pressure, and B, the weather were going to aid, or were going to suggest that kind of thing was going to happen. 2 players. I mean, we'll talk about. Gareth Anscombe today. I think I played a wonderful game. Came obviously engineered that try in the first couple of minutes. Got moved to fullback. I personally thought that was possibly a poor decision. I wanted to see. I would have kept Williams back there to try it, because it's a wet day. There's going to be lots of bombs. But Anscombe had a wonderful day, both at 10 and 15 today, didn't he?
Yeah, he absolutely did. It was a big reaction given the kind of clamour to get Dan Bigger into the starting team that was there initially. He's a player who judges the tempo of games really, really well. Like, he seems to, I think even when things weren't going his way, it was down to execution. It was never down to his thinking. Like, he always seems to have the right idea. And that was kind of patently obvious today. I thought the first try was really, really well worked. It was just spotting an opportunity, that there was a total mismatch in your defensive line. It's just, I think it's maybe the infiltration of a certain idea that you have to pack your defensive line these to kind of these 15 men into a line and nobody covering the backfield. And it's players like Anscombe actually who become more commodity. Like that's the commodity you want now. It's players who can identify that and expose kind of backfield inadequacies.
Yeah, and the England game's already started. England already 7-0 up. So I do want to
Sure.
get onto that. But very quickly, three players I want to sort of to call out is that Welsh back row. Moriarty and Navidi got through a lot of tackles and then allowed Tipuric to be that second man in there to try and get the turnovers. That tactic worked well today. Only one missed tackle amongst the three of them. Alwyn Jones also with 16 tackles as well. Meant there was an awful lot of work done by that pack, even though we'll probably be talking about the halfbacks and how well they ran the game.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that was quite obviously a huge battle area for the game. When you look at players like TJ Sander and how influential he was last week against France, and then I think on the final whistle stat he had negative yards per carry. I think it just goes to show he got absolutely nowhere in terms of his carrying. I thought it was really ineffectual. Sean O'Brien likewise, I think might have had 5 carries for 4 yards or something like that on the final whistle stat. That'll be updated as the day goes on, but those kind of things just paint a picture. They paint a picture of and again, this is, like you mentioned, Wyn Jones. I actually thought a lot of what Wyn Jones did in conjunction with Tipuric was like these kind of really balanced partnerships that Ireland just didn't have. There was no cohesion in their pack, which led to kind of the scoreline that you see.
It did. But any players you thought had a good game out of the Ireland side?
I thought Gary Ringrose, for what, like, I mean, there's few and fair things that you can present. I thought Gary Ringrose did well defensively. I think he's becoming a real leader in this team and somebody that's pretty vital. Peter Mahoney, as usual, was brilliant when he gave an attitude, but Peter Mahoney's his wheelhouse isn't necessarily in. I mean, you look at his stats and they might not necessarily rack up, but it's in his immense contribution as a lineout. He's probably one of the best jumpers in the tournament. His ability then is in and around the breakdown. He's that huge steal. But this is the problem. I mean, you identify moments like a brilliant jackal by Peter Mahoney, but the very next box hit was Conor Murray overcooking it, and it goes too deep, and the point itself is lost. I mean, it's these moments of isolation that you're kind of hunting around for some sort of silver lining.
Yeah, one other area we should talk about is the scrum as well. Craig Healy gave up 4 penalties. Ty Furlong gave up 2 penalties, and that's 6 penalties amongst your props. Now, I'm not saying they were all at 7 actually, because also Porter gave up 1. I'm not saying they were all at scrum time, but both, because they also were caught offside as well. But that set piece was a big thing for Wales in that one. So you got to say hats off to the Welsh front row as well for sort of, I guess, less obvious work that they were also doing.
Yeah, and I mean their penalties for like stuff like missing your bind or dropping to your knees, it was just is kind of criminal errors.
So thank you very much, Johnny. I'd say go check out the bulls.ie for their coverage of all of the Six Nations and other rugby as well. They also have a good weekly YouTube show. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to rush off now and watch catch up on the England game. Don't forget, up there you can subscribe. Down there is how you become a Patreon. And over there are 2 videos that the artificial intelligence at YouTube say you'll absolutely adore. So check out those. But finally, from both of us, a massive congratulations to Wales. That's 14 wins on the trot. That doesn't happen by accident. Fully deserved. Six Nations and Grand Slam champions. And ignore all the talk about lack of bonus points and lack of tries. They are deserving champions.